It's time to sit back and relax with your favorite drink and listen to the story urban hunt. The subway tunnels smelled of mildew and rust, the air heavy with moisture and the faint tang of decay. My chest still throbbed from adrenaline, and my ears rang from the chaos of the warehouse fight. I led the group of survivors through the dimly lit passageways, each step calculated. One wrong move could lead us straight into the hive's reach. We paused at a junction where the tracks split. I pulled out a map I'd grabbed from a station kiosk. Crumpled, water-stained, mostly useless, but it gave a sense of the city grid. "We can't stay down here forever," I said. "The hive isn't just in the streets, it's already learning, spreading. If we stay, we become predictable." A young man in the group, barely 20, shook his head. "But up there," he said, pointing toward a vent leading to a street-level grate, "it's Alpha." "You said, it's out there." I nodded. "Alpha won't give up, not easily. But it can't be everywhere at once. The hive has limits, even if it's fast, even if it adapts." The survivors were quiet. Fear had etched itself into their faces, but so had determination. Survival demanded it. I led them to a maintenance ladder ascending to a deserted street. We climbed in silence, the hum faint but insistent below us, like a distant drumbeat reminding us the hive was aware. When we emerged, the city was a broken tableau. Fires burned in overturned cars. The streetlights flickered intermittently, casting long, jagged shadows. Windows were smashed, debris littered the avenues, and in the distance I could hear the same rhythmic hum, low and persistent, that had haunted us underground. I motioned the group to follow me along the alleyways, using debris and shadow as cover. Every step was dangerous. Every movement was observed. "This way," I whispered, pointing toward a crumbling office building. "It's defensible, at least for now. We can regroup, plan, and, hopefully, rest." As we moved, I noticed patterns in the partially infected. Their movements weren't random. Groups would form, circle, and then split, testing, probing. The hive wasn't just chaos, it was intelligence, distributed across countless hosts, constantly learning, constantly adapting. I glanced at the survivors, their eyes wide. "Listen," I said, this isn't just about fighting. It's about thinking faster than they do, predicting them, forcing mistakes. If we make a plan, we survive." A low, resonant moan rose from a distant street. The hum shifted in response. Alpha was near. I froze, listening. The group followed my lead, ducking behind a dumpster. Shadows shifted along the walls of the nearby buildings, partially infected, stalking, testing. One moved in jerky, unnatural rhythms, then paused, head tilted, listening, waiting. I clenched my fists. This was the city now, the streets, the alleys, the buildings. They were no longer ours. The hive had claimed them, and we were intruders in its domain. "We move carefully," I said, voice low. "Slow, quiet. Avoid the main streets, only one path at a time. Understand?" Nods, silent agreement. Fear tempered with necessity. I took the lead, flashlight off, shadows as our allies. The hive could sense patterns, and I had to remain unpredictable. Every decision could be the difference between survival and becoming part of the swarm. Ahead, a collapsed bridge cast a dark shadow across the street. Perfect for ambush or escape. I whispered, "Stay close. Stay silent. We're hunting and being hunted now." The city was awake. and the urban hunt had begun. The alley was narrow, littered with shattered crates, broken glass, and twisted metal. I led the survivors cautiously, every footstep deliberate. The hum from the hive below and beyond seemed to thrum. In my skull, a constant reminder that we were being watched, analyzed, studied. "Keep your eyes open," I whispered. "Listen for anything out of pattern. They'll probe us first before I barked. The survivors scattered, ducking behind debris, metal beams, and abandoned vehicles. I swung my crowbar at the nearest host, striking it across the shoulder. It faltered, giving me a brief opening. The hum shifted. Alpha was near. The hive's intelligence was present in every movement of the infected, guiding them, learning from us. I grabbed a fire extinguisher from the ground and sprayed directly into a cluster of approaching hosts. The cold cloud disrupted their coordination momentarily. They stumbled, arms flailing, heads snapping in jerky confusion. "Move! To the side exit!" I shouted, pointing toward a narrow passage between two collapsed buildings. We ran, hearts pounding, breath ragged. The partially infected pursued, but not recklessly. They adapted, slowed, and then surged again in tighter formation. Alpha was orchestrating them, testing us, observing us. As we ducked into the passage, I saw a silhouette ahead, a lone figure crouched atop a pile of rubble, observing us. Its milky eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. Patient Alpha. The hive was patient, deliberate. It didn't need to rush. Every move we made fed its understanding. I signaled to the survivors to scatter and regroup. "Divide them. Force errors," I whispered urgently. Improvisation was our only chance. The partially infected lunged. I swung my crowbar, hitting one in the temple, then grabbed a length of rebar and rammed it into another. They convulsed, paused, but the hive adjusted instantly. From above, Alpha moved with impossible speed, landing behind a pile of rubble. Its presence was more than physical. Its awareness pressed into my mind, probing, predicting. I realized then the terrifying scale of what we faced. The hive didn't just control its hosts, it thought through them. Every strike, every reaction we made, it learned. I yelled, "Push through, don't let the and box in." The survivors followed, kicking debris into the attackers, using the environment to disrupt their formations. The narrow passage became a chaotic gauntlet, each turn and obstacle buying us precious seconds. Finally, we reached the far end of the alley and spilled into a ruined courtyard. Smoke and fire blurred the edges of our vision. The hive paused, recalibrating. Alpha remained on the rubble pile, eyes glowing, calculating. We were alive, for now. But I knew this was only the beginning. The city had become a living trap. Every street, every shadow, every ruined building was under the hive's awareness. And somewhere, Alpha was already planning the next strike. The courtyard was deceptively calm, a brief pocket of stillness in a city that had become a living predator. We huddled behind the remnants of a collapsed wall, breathing hard, muscles trembling. The survivors looked to me, eyes wide, waiting for instructions. "There's no time to linger," I whispered. "Alpha isn't just out there, it's learning from us. Every second we hesitate, it adapts." We moved cautiously, sticking to shadowed alleyways and ruined buildings, using debris as cover. Every sound, the distant crash of a falling sign, the clatter of loose rubble, made us freeze. Every light flicker cast eerie shadows that could hide a swarm. The city had become a labyrinth. Streets twisted unnaturally, barricaded vehicles blocked obvious paths, and abandoned cars littered intersections. It was impossible to tell what was safe. What was a trap? I scanned the environment, using instincts honed from years as a paramedic responding to chaos. Patterns emerged. The partially infected moved in predictable loops, converging, dispersing, testing. Alpha, orchestrated from above or behind the scenes, never direct, always calculating. "Over there," I whispered, pointing to a narrow side street that cut through a row of burned-out storefronts. "We can move through here. Keep low. Don't break formation." The survivors nodded silently. Fear was etched into every line of their faces, but fear, sharp shadows stretching like fingers across the walls. A sudden scraping noise made us all freeze. I spun, crowbar raised, and caught a partially infected emerging from a smashed doorway. Its head jerked unnaturally, white eyes fixed on me. Its body convulsed in sync with a faint, low hum, the hive's signature. I swung the crowbar, striking it across the shoulder. The sound of cracking bone echoed in the narrow street. The hive recalibrated. Another partially infected appeared, this one moving slower, cautious. I realized the hive was testing, probing, learning our tactics. "We can't keep fighting them like this," I muttered. "We need to think ahead, use the city to our advantage." I spotted a stairwell leading to the roof of a nearby building. "Up there," I said, pointing. "If we get higher, we can see patterns, anticipate movements. It's risky, but safer than staying at street level." We climbed quickly, muscles burning. From the rooftop, the scale of the city hit me. Fires dotted the streets, smoke curling into the sky. The hum of the hive was faint, but omnipresent, threading through the ruined avenues. Groups of partially infected moved in loops, converging in points, splitting again, a living grid under Alpha's control. "This is insane," muttered the young man from earlier, eyes wide. "It's organized." "Not just organized," I said grimly. "Intelligent, it's learning, adapting, and we're part of its curriculum." We observed for several minutes, mapping the streets mentally, noting where the partially infected moved, where they hesitated, where Alpha might be. Every pattern we discerned was a potential escape route, or a trap if we miscalculated. Finally, I made a decision. We move at dawn, cover as much distance as possible before they adapt fully. We can't fight them, not yet. We survive and we learn. That's our advantage. The survivors nod. Ed, understanding the stakes. The city wasn't just a battlefield, it was a puzzle. Every street, every shadow, every abandoned building was a piece, and Alpha was already anticipating our moves. As night deepened, we huddled on the rooftop, watching the city pulse below us. The hum never ceased. The hive was awake, and somewhere Alpha waited, patient and calculating. We would survive, but only if we stayed smarter, faster, and more unpredictable than the monster that now ruled the city. The first light of dawn bled over the city, pale and weak, filtering through smoke and haze. The streets below were a shifting battlefield of shadows and movement. The partially infected stirred, guided by the faint pulse of Alpha's hum. I could feel it resonating through the city, through the very concrete beneath my feet. "Move," I whispered to the group. "We go now, while they're still recalibrating from last night." We descended from the rooftop carefully, using fire escapes and crumbling scaffolding to stay off the street. Every surface was slick with ash, rain, or blood. Every step could betray us. As we reached the street level, I froze. The partials had formed patrols, moving in tight loops, scanning methodically. The hive was already anticipating our path. "Split up," I hissed. "Take the left alley, follow me, keep your distance, but stay in sight." The group scattered, shadows twisted in response, partially infected splitting to intercept us. The hive was learning faster than made me pivot. A partially infected lunged, jaw dripping black ooze. I slammed my crowbar into its head. It crumpled, twitching. Behind it, another emerged, faster, jerky, precise. The hum intensified. Alpha was near. I ran, leading the survivors through a maze of abandoned vehicles and debris. We ducked into a narrow service road, but the hive was relentless. More appeared ahead, blocking our escape. "Back there!" shouted the young man from the group. He had been holding a pipe like a weapon, but froze as a partially infected host raised its claw. I grabbed his arm, pulling him toward a fire escape ladder. "Climb, now!" We ascended into a derelict office building. From the top, we saw the city in its full, ruined expanse. Smoke rose from half-collapsed buildings, fires dotted the streets. The hum was omnipresent, omniscient. Alpha emerged atop a nearby rooftop, its white eyes scanning. The hive had pinpointed our location, studying, learning, adapting. It didn't attack immediately, it never did. It waited, calculated. I motioned the survivors to follow me along the rooftops, jumping gaps, breaking line of sight. Every leap and every silent landing was a gamble. The hive tracked us, but its precision was slower at range, at least for now. We reached a warehouse at the far end of the block. Doors rusted shut, but climbable. I led the group inside. The space was dark, filled with overturned crates and broken machinery. For a moment, we could breathe. "Alpha won't stop," I said, leaning against a crate. "It's patient, but it also adapts. That's our window. Learn its patterns, move unpredictably, survive. That's all we have." From outside, a low, resonant hum rolled through the air. Alpha was not far, orchestrating its swarm. The hive was aware, watching, waiting. I looked at the survivors, faces pale, fear etched into every line. "We make it through today," I said quietly. "We survive, we adapt, we fight, one day at a time." The dawn was weak, but the first light of hope, faint and fragile, glimmered in our eyes. Survival was no longer just a choice. It was a calculated gamble against a predator that learned from every heartbeat, every breath, every mistake. And the game had only just begun. The warehouse offered temporary refuge, but the hum told me it was only a matter of time. Alpha was nearby, and its influence rippled through the city like a pulse. Every partially infected in the surrounding blocks moved with unnatural precision, forming a living perimeter. "We can't stay here," I whispered to the group. "It knows we're here. We move now." The survivors nodded, their fear tempered by grim determination. We navigated through the dark aisles of the warehouse, stepping over broken crates and rusted machinery. I scanned exits, noting every potential escape route, every trap Alpha might exploit. A low thud echoed through the building. We froze. From the shattered ceiling, Alpha dropped silently, landing like a predator stalking its prey. Its white eyes scanned, and the hum intensified, filling the room with a low, vibrating resonance. "You see that?" whispered the woman with the crowbar. It's not human." I nodded as, "Not entirely. It's intelligent, patient, and it's learning from every faster than anything I had ever seen." The survivors scattered, ducking behind crates and machinery. I swung my crowbar, striking it across the shoulder. It barely reacted, twisting effortlessly around my strike, its movements fluid yet jerky at once, like a puppet learning to walk. The hum shifted, subtle but deliberate. Alpha was coordinating the partially infected outside. They began breaching the building, tearing through walls, smashing windows. The swarm responded to its signal, converging on our position with terrifying precision. Move! Rooftop exit! I shouted. I grabbed the woman's arm and pulled her toward a fire escape. Others followed, leaping over debris, climbing rickety ladders. Alpha followed, moving with impossible speed. Its presence pressed on my mind, a calculated force, testing my reactions. Every leap, every breath, every step was anticipated. We reached the rooftop, hearts pounding, lungs burning. The city stretched around us, a ruined battlefield. Fires dotted the streets. Smoke and ash blurred the skyline. Alpha crouched on the edge of a collapsed building across the street, white eyes fixed on us, the hum vibrating through the air, through the ground, through our bones. "We can't outrun it forever," I muttered. "We need a plan, something unpredictable." A thought struck me. The partially infected responded to the hive's hum. If we disrupted that signal even briefly, we could create a window. I grabbed a discarded speaker system from the warehouse roof and rigged it with an amplifier I found inside. "This might work," I said. "We create noise, static, interference, break the signal. We move while it's recalibrating." The survivors stared, unsure, but trust was all we had. I hit the power switch. Static crackled, amplified, rolling over the streets below. The hum wavered. The partially infected froze mid-step. Confusion spreading like a ripple. "Now, run!" I yelled. We leapt across rooftops, sliding down fire escapes, breaking through weak sections of walls. The swarm faltered, momentarily disoriented. Alpha hissed, a low, resonant sound of frustration, and lunged, but the static gave us precious seconds. We reached a side street that led toward the riverfront. Our legs burned, lungs screamed, but we kept moving. Behind us, the hum began to recover, Alpha recalibrating. I realized then the terrifying truth. The hive was patient, persistent, adaptable. Today, we survived. Tomorrow it would learn from our tactics, and we would have to adapt again. But for now, we were alive. And the first confrontation with Alpha had taught us something crucial. Survival wasn't just about strength, it was about strategy, improvisation, and unpredictability. The city remained a labyrinth, the hive was everywhere, and the real hunt had only just begun. We staggered through the shattered streets, every step cautious, every shadow a potential threat. The static interference had bought us precious minutes, but the hum pulsed faintly in the distance, Alpha recalibrating. The city was alive with it, a predator learning from every warehouse, muttered the young man, voice shaking. It's smart. Smarter than any human, I said grimly, scanning the ruined street. And it's patient. It studies, waits, and then it strikes. I led the group toward the riverfront, following an old service road that had partially survived the chaos. From a distance, I could see a partially collapsed bridge spanning the river, offering a potential route out, or at least a defensible position. "This could work," I said. "High ground, clear sight lines, a choke point. We can hold it if necessary." We moved silently, ducking behind overturned vehicles and rubble, staying off the main streets. Every sound, the scrape of metal, a distant crash, made us freeze. The hive was everywhere, but we could use the ruined city as cover. As we neared the bridge, we noticed movement on the opposite bank. Shadows shifted unnaturally, then froze as if sensing our presence. Alpha, it was watching, waiting, learning. I signaled the survivors to take cover behind a crumbled wall. We can't fight it directly, not yet, but we can observe, plan, and prepare. Every second we survive is a chance to learn. The riverfront offered more than a vantage point. The derelict warehouses along the bank contained resources, tools, improvised weapons, and maybe even survivors. I motioned the group toward one of the larger warehouses, a tall structure with broken windows and a reinforced loading dock. Inside, the space was dark but intact. Dust motes floated in the weak morning light. The hum was faint here, distant but persistent. We barricaded the doors with debris, creating a temporary safe zone. I turned to the group. We rest, we regroup, and we plan. Alpha will come, it always does, but we survive, we learn, and we adapt. That's our only chance. Hours passed in tense silence. The survivors scavenged supplies while I monitored the street outside. Every distant moan, every shuffle of feet sent a jolt of adrenaline through me. At midday, we spotted another survivor, a middle-aged man carrying a backpack and wielding a crowbar. He hesitated at the warehouse entrance, clearly unsure if we were friend or foe. "Hey!" I called softly, waving him over. "We're survivors. Come on in." He ran, grateful, and joined our small group. "The city. It's gone," he said, voice trembling. "Everywhere. They're everywhere. I saw it. The swarm. The hum." "I know," I said grimly. We're learning. We adapt. That's all we can do." The riverfront offered a brief reprieve, a chance to breathe, regroup, and plan our next moves, but the hum was never far. Alpha was always watching, always learning. As night fell, I realized the horrifying truth. The city wasn't just dangerous, it was a living, calculating trap. The hive was patient, persistent, relentless, and we were its prey. But we were alive. And for now, that was enough. Night fell over the riverfront, the weak glow of the city fires casting long, flickering shadows across the warehouse walls. The survivors huddled inside, exhausted but tense, knowing that Alpha would not leave us alone for long. I stood near the broken loading dock, peering into the darkness beyond. The hum was faint at first, almost imperceptible, then slowly grew into the familiar pulse, vibrating through the concrete, through the debris, through our very bones. "They're coming," I whispered. The survivors flinched, but nodded. Fear was no longer a paralyzing force. It had sharpened them, made them alert. Movement emerged. Partially infected shuffled and lurched, but now in more coordinated groups. Alpha was testing us, probing for weaknesses, learning from every tactic we'd used. "We need to be ready," I said, distributing makeshift weapons, pipes, crowbars, and anything with weight and reach. "Don't just fight, anticipate, distract, mislead. The hive is smart, but it's not infallible." The first group of partials slammed against the barricades, wood splintered, metal groaned, and the air filled with the unmistakable moan of the hive. Alpha remained at a distance, orchestrating from the rooftops, its white eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. I grabbed a crowbar and swung at the nearest attacker, forcing it back. The others followed, and the warehouse became a frenzy of defensive strikes. Each movement we made was calculated, each strike precise. We couldn't afford mistakes. One wrong move meant being overwhelmed. A loud crash came from the roof. Alpha had descended, faster than we could track, moving among the swarm with unnatural speed. Its presence was oppressive, a constant pressure in my mind. The hum intensified, synchronizing the partials into a single, terrifying entity. "Split! Divide them!" I shouted. The survivors responded instantly, scattering to opposite sides of the warehouse. Rocks, broken boards, and metal debris became weapons and distractions. Every attack we made, every noise we created, disrupted the hive's rhythm, if only for a few precious seconds. One survivor, the middle-aged man we rescued at the riverfront, froze as a partially infected lunged at him. I slammed my crowbar into the creature's skull, buying him enough time to escape. Alpha hissed, a low, resonant, almost human-like sound of irritation. Its intelligence was evident, its calculations faster, but it was still adjusting. We could feel it learning from each of our improvised tactics. "We need an exit," I muttered to myself. We can't keep fighting here." I spotted a narrow alley to the rear of the warehouse. "Cover me!" I shouted. Using the chaos, I led the survivors toward the alley, using overturned crates and shadows as cover. The partials surged, but the hum and the confusion slowed them just enough. We reached the alley, slipping into the darkness. Behind us, the warehouse erupted in a storm of noise, the hive recalibrating, frustrated but relentless. Alpha's eyes glowed from a nearby rooftop, watching, waiting. Breathing heavily, I turned to the survivors. "We survived the first wave," I said, voice steady but low. "But it will come again, and it will be smarter this time." The group nodded, each face a mask of exhaustion and determination. The city had become a living, hunting maze, and we were learning how to navigate it. The hum continued in the distance, a reminder that Alpha was never far. It was patient, persistent, and calculating. And the urban hunt was far from over. The alley opened onto a wider street, littered with wrecked vehicles, broken signs, and the detritus of a city that had surrendered to chaos. The survivors moved cautiously, eyes darting in every direction. The hum lingered faintly in the distance, Alpha still observing, calculating, orchestrating the swarm. "We can't stop," I whispered. "Every second we linger, it adapts. We keep moving, fast and unpredictable." The middle-aged survivor, clutching his crowbar, nodded silently. The young man from earlier adjusted his grip on a metal pipe, muscles tense. Everyone was alert, every sense sharpened by fear and necessity. Suddenly, a partial appeared from the shadows, lurching toward us with jerky precision. I swung my crowbar, connecting solidly with its head. It went down, twitching, but more appeared, more than I had expected. Alpha was testing us a
"Draw them apart,"
game, I shouted, leading the survivors towards separate cover points. Rocks, scrap metal, and overturned furniture became improvised barriers and distractions. The partials faltered, momentarily confused, but the hum pulsed stronger. Alpha was adapting faster than ever. We reached a partially collapsed building and ducked inside. The interior was dark, the air heavy with dust and decay. Through broken windows, we could see the swarm converging on the street behind us, guided by the hive's omnipresent signal. "We need a plan," I said, voice low but firm. "We can't fight them all head-on. We need a choke point, a distraction, something to slow Alpha's network." I scanned the room and noticed a set of old industrial fans and electrical boxes. If I could rig them to overload, the surge might disrupt the hive's signal briefly, just long enough to give us a window. "Help me!" I commanded. The survivors jumped into action, dragging debris and tools to the electrical panels. Sparks flew as we worked quickly, every second a gamble. The hum outside grew louder, a rising tide of coordination and anticipation. Finally, I slammed the last connection, sending a surge of electricity through the fans. A crackling arc of blue energy lit the room, followed by a momentary silence. The hum faltered, wavering, then diminished. The partially infected outside froze, disoriented, confused. "Move!" I yelled. We sprinted through the building, Using shadows and debris as cover, the survivors followed, adrenaline surging, hearts hammering. For the first time, we had a chance. The hive was momentarily blind. We reached the riverfront again, closer to the bridge. The swarm behind us began to recover, the hum strengthening once more, but we had gained distance. The bridge offered a defensible position, high above the chaos below, and a potential route to safer ground. We paused briefly on the riverbank, catching our breath. Every face was streaked with grime and sweat, every eye wide with terror and determination. "We survived this wave," I said, voice steady, despite exhaustion. "But the city is still alive. Alpha is patient, and it will learn from everything we did. We can't stop. We can only adapt, move, and survive." The survivors nodded, fear mingled with a glimmer of hope. The city was a predator, the hive relentless, and Alpha intelligent beyond comprehension. Yet, we were still here, still breathing, still human. As night fell again, we took our first careful steps onto the bridge. The hum pulsed faintly beneath us, a reminder that the hunt was far from over. But we had survived another day. And in the urban labyrinth, survival was everything. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this story today. Hoping to see you all again very soon. Till then, sweet dreams.